Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Dela's Voice. Your financial crisis is real. That is the topic of this Dela's Voice talk show. I'm so excited to speak to my next guest. This is one of the most important interviews I've ever done. Our financial crisis is real. Jennifer Woodbeck is a financial professional who is also, amongst other things, a superhero. I'm going to bring her on in a second, but I want to introduce you to Jennifer Woodbeck, author, speaker, financial professional, COPD educator, respiratory therapist, entrepreneur, mom, hero, wife, superwoman. Please help me welcome Jennifer Woodbeck on the show. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we start, I want to acknowledge you for everything you do. You and your husband are both frontliners in this pandemic and putting your lives at risk every day for us. So I want to thank you for that because I know that you put your financial professional coaching business on hold when you go to do that part of your life. So I want to thank you for that. So
You.
thank you for being here, Jennifer. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is incredible to be able to talk to you and share a little bit with some of your audience.
What we're talking about today is real. It's a very important topic to talk about, but one that's very difficult to have. And this conversation is not easy to have. And right, our money, our financial situation is one of those topics that's not easy to talk about. And so, why is this important right now? Why is our financial crisis real, as we titled this talk?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think the financial crisis that was happening before was relevant for a lot of people, but they weren't forced into it. So we know that statistics, there's 95% of the people who retire broke or below the poverty line, at or below the poverty line. And that was before we had this. There's not enough education and there's not enough clear communication with people. So the shift that's happening now is even more so bringing things to the forefront where people are unable to pay bills. They've lost jobs and that communication wasn't there to begin with. And now it's a whole other ball game of what people understand and know what to do.
So how could it affect us if we don't talk about it? If things go the way they do, how could this affect us?
Well, a lot of people, because they aren't talking about it, I've heard a lot of people say that they feel really anxious. They feel anxious about being in the house. They feel anxious about getting sick. Then, of course, there's all those stress and that concern. How do you pay bills? What do you do when you don't have an income coming in? And when people aren't comfortable speaking to their spouse or their significant other about that, or they're a single person on their own with kids or on their own to pay bills, they don't know where to turn or who to talk to about that. So that communication isn't there, and that ends up causing a lot more crisis and a lot more stress for people. And once you're feeling that, how do you get out of that? Or where do you turn? Who do you turn to start looking at some of those issues to help make you feel more comfortable that you're on the right path?
So Jennifer, I want to ask you a question because I know you're both a financial, advisor and also a financial coach. I don't know the difference. Could you explain that, please? Thank you.
Sure. So there are essentially a couple different options. So a financial coach, what they do is more, I call it hand holding in a nice way. It's a little more of looking at budgets, looking at where things are going. What is your money in, money out? Where do things grow and progress? Looking at a couple different steps to get you somewhere you want to go. A financial advisor or a financial consultant is similar in a sense that they look at where things are and they help you plan for retirement or help you plan for your next big goal. They can be combined. So there are some financial professionals or financial advisors that do spend the time looking at budgets and helping people, but not as much. Normally, it's the people that have money to put away. They'll start with a financial advisor and start going down that path. More so with a financial coach, a lot of times that's a person that's helping you on a path, but they may not be the person that can actually tell you where to put your retirement money or where to buy life insurance because they don't have that expertise. So what I've done is I've encompassed my financial professional license that I have with the Ontario government and also combined my coaching, my life coaching and executive business coaching, combined those two to be able to do both ends of it. So for some people that need budget counseling and help to figure out where to cut back and where to plan for their futures, I can do that, but also help them know where's the best place to start putting that money to.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
you help people with money management. That okay? Because we hear the term money management. It's so much more um, tangible. Like I feel like yeah, like and this is one of those things that we're not equipped with as we grow up. Most people don't know how to do that. Most people don't know how to manage their money, and so we end up in a lot of trouble. We end up in a lot of debt, right? And
Right.
if that conversation is too difficult to have, then we just go deeper and deeper and deeper. So for me, and I feel like for a lot of women, that's a big issue, don't you think?
Exactly. A lot of people don't understand how, I always say, how money works. So we might get it, or it's a number in a paycheck, that's a number in a bank, it's a credit card that we have a limit on, but people don't really understand what it means to use that credit card instead of using the money in your bank. So having somebody to work with you through some of that and understand it, just some simple concepts to look at it differently based on what your income is and based on what you're spending, just really helps people get a better perspective on what's going on.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you have also Jennifer is an author. So I mentioned that I think your book is called Butterflies and Shiny Things. And so I can so relate to the title of that book. And in that book, it's actually a guide for women on how to manage financial distractions and hence shiny things.
Yes.
and,
We
and
like
so,
shiny things.
yeah, we do. So, what is your book about in essence? So, could you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the book actually came about a little bit from having some conversations with other women and other women in the financial industry. And we realized that there's a gap. There's a gap, like you mentioned, in education, but there's also a gap in the fact that a lot of women don't feel comfortable asking those questions about, well, what does RRSP really mean? And I think back to the times I was working in the hospital when I'd sit at the lunch table with a bunch of the people and they were talking about this tax-free savings account or they were talking about their pensions and retirements and it would go in one ear and out the other. Oh, okay, sure. One day I'll need to know that. And I
Mhm.
realized more and more and more people, women especially, don't ask those questions and don't feel comfortable. So the book actually has come about in a sense that it tells you the definitions and what a financial advisor will ask you and help you build up some of, the question and answers in there that you should ask a trained professional about, but also having some background knowledge when they say to you, do you know your financial independence number? That's not just blah, blah, blah. You actually know what that means.
I
So
don't
you
know
know
what
what
you
they're
mean.
looking for. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it came about in a sense so that you won't be your own financial advisor, but at the same time you'll know what the questions are asking and
Mhm.
how to answer them so that you're not feeling at the end of the day that you've walked into a meeting and walked out feeling the same way.
Oh my God, that's so true. That makes total sense because when we don't know something, we feel vulnerable, and that right, in
Yeah,
even asking the right question,
yeah,
because we don't want to look like we don't know,
yeah,
and so we just pretend we know or we don't care.
yeah.
um, right, so in your book you're explaining everything in really
Mhm.
simple terms so that people could understand.
Yeah. And at the end of each chapter, I've given homework essentially. So there's a few questions as I've gone through a chapter, then there's a bit of homework after to say, to look at your own money and your own things. What are your feelings around money? Why do you spend or why do you not? What is your insurance plan? Do you have one? What do the terms of it mean so that you have a better idea? And then also it empowers women to feel that they're not just being sold to, they understand the reasons why somebody might say that may not be the best plan for you. They have some background to say, I agree with you or I disagree with you.
And even to be able to ask questions, because I mean, I can sit in a room with a financial advisor and just take in everything they say,
Yep.
and if I don't understand what they say, having that fear of asking for clarification.
Yeah.
But right, if I have a little bit of knowledge about this, then I can ask the right questions
Mhm.
and get the right answers.
Yeah. And some of it came out of the fact I realized when I sat with couples that I got a lot of phone calls, I have to say, from women after that they said, okay, I kind of understood what you said, but I didn't want to ask in front of my husband because I didn't want to feel stupid. And then they would call me
Mm.
after and then ask all these questions that they didn't, even with their spouse, that they didn't feel comfortable asking at the time. So, part of that also allows people to have at home, I'm hoping at home, will have a conversation between each other. My
Mhm.
husband laughs because he thinks this book needs to be out there for men too, because I'm the financial guru in our family. He's not, but maybe
Yeah.
that'll be the next book.
Absolutely. Because men and women, we do learn in different terms,
Yeah.
and so it's important to have the right education out there. Thank you so much. This is exciting. I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
Also, as a to explain more about the book and the concepts
Mhm.
inside, as to go deeper into that, you also offer an 8-week uh, coaching,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
To basically accompany the book, to take an in-depth look into the
Mhm.
topics. Okay, so explain about that a little bit.
Perfect. Yeah. So essentially, each of the chapters within the book are built so that people can start off with their original, goals and dreams. What do you want in the next 5 years or the next 1 year? What do you want in the next 10 years? And what are your dreams for retirement? And then you build on that through each chapter. So a big part of that, of course, are a lot of people have either really big dreams and don't know how to get there, or they have really a lot of concerns that they'll never have enough money to dream. So by having the expertise of a coach, you have the opportunity to start off just simple like that. We have conversations on that and say,
Mhm.
what are your dreams and what are your goals as a person and what are your goals as a family? And then from there, going and looking at how do we make those dreams happen. So part of that might be that we look at, of course, a budget. A lot of people miss the big step of having a budget. I probably spend the majority of my time with my clients actually going through budgets. And for some, it's painful because they don't want to admit how much they spend. But for some, we make sure that we are going at that, looking at, of course, right now we're not going to Starbucks, but how much are you spending at Starbucks? It's a great place, but could you buy at McDonald's if you really need your coffee? Can you do that at home? What are things that we can do to cut back so that you can realistically see what your goals are and make them happen? A lot of people have great ambitions about retiring. So let's look at what that is and how do we get there at the age that you want to. So a lot of it in the financial profession is looking at some of those markers, but not specifically starting off with your budget and making sure that you can make ends meet to get to that point. So what I do with people specifically is spend the time where they also go away and they do some of the work, and then they come back with the homework a week later and we look at that again. So here's your budget. Here's where we're going to start cutting back. Here's where I think you should put money away. Here's where I think you can pay off your mortgage earlier. Here's where maybe we need to look at debt consolidation. So looking at all of those steps in a week by week basis so that we can get you to that point where you feel comfortable knowing that you can actually succeed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you have done this for a long time.
Yes.
How many years is that now?
So I say a long time. So I've worked in this field now for I shouldn't say only, for 2 years. It's been 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a lot of, when I worked in the healthcare field, I did a lot of ordering and budgeting and working with a lot more patients that I had. I worked in chronic diseases. So I saw a lot of the devastation that would happen when people lost a loved one, or unfortunately, if they had a loved one that was sick. So I worked not in a professional capacity that I was advising at that point for finances, but got to see and talk to people on a regular basis about some of the things they needed to do. So I had wives or husbands sit in my office and tell me that they needed to sell their house, or they needed to go to work because they couldn't pay bills and their loved one was lying there in the bed. So having those conversations were something that I did on a different basis. Looking at people having to renovate a home because a loved one now needs a wheelchair. So some of those structures and conversations were things I've been having for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm. And you saw the need, the real need, especially when people are stricken with challenges, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It was it. I have a few stories I can remember, of course, of
Yeah.
people, a young woman who was amazing. Her husband fell at work. They were in their 20s, late 20s, and they had 3 kids. She homeschooled the kids. They had a beautiful piece of property that they were living on. She didn't have to work. He worked, and unfortunately got injured at work and fell and hit his head and was a brain injury. So he couldn't go to work. They looked at trying to get him home, and then he ended up getting sick with a pneumonia, and he passed away. And she had to, because they didn't have insurance, they were young, didn't think they needed it. She had to sell the house, move into town, put the kids into daycare. She had to start working. So not only did she lose her husband before the age of 30, but had to completely upheaval her life in order to make ends meet just for her family. I've seen people young, I've seen people old that, still never expect someone to get sick, or let alone someone pass away. And especially with this pandemic and such going on now, a lot of people aren't prepared, not about getting sick, but aren't prepared financially for what it means if you can't go to work, or your spouse can't go to work. And then that fear of if you get sick is a whole other component on top of that.
Mm-hmm. There's hope, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Sorry, it'd be a downer on that part.
No, but
There is.
That's it. Like, I think first step is to accept it, to accept that there is this problem and we need to solve it. And the second step is to seek the help. And so that's where you come in, and that's where you help with that hope business. So give us some hope, Jennifer.
Yes. Absolutely. So I like to say that the B word isn't a bad word. And that's actually one of the chapter titles in my book. So budgets are not bad. I relate them to a diet. Sometimes it's something we just have to do for a period of time to get back on track, right? It's not horrible, but a lot of people have no idea what that means. And so even just, for those at home, or those thinking about what they do, or they don't know how to pay bills, write it out. There's budget options. I have budget options on my website too. There's budget options to just start writing down some information that will help you go through what that is, so that you can actually see where your money's going, track it, and see where you can either cut back or bills that need to be paid. So it's a huge component that people, especially if they're not feeling like they know what to do, that they can do from the comfort of their home, is just look at that first. And that helps you realize where you can make changes, or say, hey, I'm perfect. I don't need necessarily to make any changes today.
That's what I say. I'm perfect.
I'm perfect.
My husband doesn't agree with me.
Yeah, I remind my kids of my husband all the time. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying to write it down, because it's like, that's like anything else, right? I mean, you mentioned dieting, and I'm that's kind of my field because I'm a wellness coach with Weight Watchers. So part of what we do is we keep track of what we eat, but so we do have a budget that we have to stick to. And as you say that, I'm like, that's so true, because a lot of times we can get in trouble by saying, oh no, it's all up here, it's all in my head, I know what I'm doing, right? I know what I'm doing. I don't need to write it down. But the minute you take that pen or you digitally enter it, something switches, and now it becomes more real. And so I really appreciate you saying that. That kind of clicks with me.
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
write it down. So write down.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
There's lots of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you how could they start that?
Yeah. So there's lots of options. So a perfect example I have is a girl that came to see me probably about a year and a half ago now. And she came in originally because she came just to like a presentation or something I did like this. And she came after and she said, I need, because I call it a financial checkup. So she says, I need a financial
That's
checkup.
good, financial checkup.
You
Well,
go to your doctor
that's
once
so
a year. Why
good.
not? Yeah.
So, okay, so on that note, I
Yeah.
like to say this because I think it's cute. So you're a hang on, how did you put it in your book? So you improved health as well as financial health,
Yes. Yeah.
physical health and financial health. Okay, go ahead.
For sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. It was interesting because she came to me and said, I can't afford groceries. And I said, I'm pretty sure you're eating. So what are we doing? So we went through a budget and just looked at, and I asked her to track it. And that's probably something that you do too, Della, is not just track it at the end of the month, like daily tracking, keeping track of what you're doing. And so she tracked it. And when we added up what she was actually doing on a daily basis, she was getting, I like my McDonald's coffee, so I'm not knocking it, but she would get a McDonald's coffee in the morning and a muffin every day on the way to work. She would then drive over because she had no money. So she said she would drive over to McDonald's and just get the $5 Happy Meal and a coffee. And then on her way home, she would grab another muffin and a coffee. And that was her dinner. So when we
20
started,
bucks right there.
yeah, so we started looking at what all of that was on a monthly basis. When we tallied it all up at the end of the month, she was spending just shy of $300 a month just at McDonald's.
You don't realize that.
No, and she didn't have a coffee maker at home. She didn't have food at home. So she would, on her days off, drive over to McDonald's again to get her food. So when we looked at it, and we started going through some simple things, and I said, can you go get, I know you like your muffins, go get a package of muffins at the grocery store on your way home today or after you see me today. Just start there. Can you get a coffee maker? So we found a $20 coffee maker. A friend of hers bought her some coffee, because at that point she had no money to even go buy that. But just those couple little steps, she was able to actually buy food for home, buy bread. She had a toaster already, make some sandwiches, make some food to bring for leftovers. We freed up that money just tracking and looking at it, which at that point she thought she had no money for food. So we started just with that simple little conversation, and then started looking at where she was spending some other money, even just on gas, the extra driving over to McDonald's to go get her coffee and her food on the weekends and on the days she wasn't working. And then also looking at where she was paying some, I like to call them unnecessary expenses, some things like the insurance you pay on credit cards or debt, line of credit protections. Those are all things that if you have like life insurance, you don't need that. And life insurance is cheaper. So restructuring some of that, put an extra $50 in her pocket on top of that. So just some of those little things that people that she didn't know. So we just had some conversations about it and made it happen for her.
Because a lot of times we look at something like what you said, the McDonald's coffee and the muffin. Oh, that's only $4.
Yeah.
That's only $4. That's only $5, right? But you're right, because at the end of the month, when you tally everything up, that becomes a hefty amount of money.
It is. Yeah.
Wow, such clarification. It just becomes more real. And yeah, for sure. So I like these stories.
Yeah.
Can you think of another one?
Oh,
Just
for sure. So
yeah, okay.
there's a lady I met just actually a few months ago, and she called me because, again, her and her husband have no money and don't know where our money is going. We have a lot of credit card bills. We've taken a second mortgage on our house, and we don't know how to get out of it. They have car loans and all kinds of stuff, and they were thinking of declaring bankruptcy because they didn't know, but they also didn't know if they declared bankruptcy what that would look like for them. So they just had this idea that maybe that's what they need to do. So by going and looking at their budget and starting, both of them starting there and realizing it, there was a lot of online shopping. So just because there were certain things they thought they wanted, a certain lifestyle, they have 2 kids, they wanted the kids to have access to specific types of clothing, that kind of thing. Collectively, just in their credit cards, they had over 100,000 in just credit card debt. And most of those credit cards, of course, were ones that they had gotten again and again or missed payments. So their interest rates were up around 24%. So the unfortunate thing that a lot of people don't understand or haven't learned is the rule of 72, which is a simple concept, easier shown on paper than in a conversation. But part of that is that you take 72 divided with the amount of interest you pay on anything, and it shows you how quickly your money doubles.
Why
So
72?
I don't know exactly. It was invented way before my time and corrected by Albert Einstein. So,
So
but it's
72 divided by?
72 and your interest rate.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have a 20% interest rate on anything, credit card, line of credit, whatever it is, it will take about 3.5 years for that money to double. So if you owe 100,000 that you can't pay off, you're going to have 200,000 in
Oh,
3.5 years.
oh
In
my
another
God.
3.5 years, you'll have 400,000 you owe.
Oh.
So unfortunately, I mean, just something simple like that people don't understand. And people say, I'll pay it off later. I'll pay it off later. But later doesn't come that easily when you're already spiraling in that situation.
Oh my God. Yes. Because oblivion doesn't pay off.
No, no, no. So I mean, that's a simple thing when we start looking at budgets and where people are paying and where to allocate money. And lots of times I have people call in and say, I'm thinking of paying off this credit card because it's a lower amount, but I also have this that's a higher amount. Which one should I do? And we look at it because there's different strategies for both. And a lot of that comes down to how much is owed, how much is the interest rate, whether you pay off the higher amount first financially for you to have more movable money. So like there's different concepts within those that I look at on a case by case basis, really.
Oh wow, stuff like that could cause families to break up. It
Mm-hmm.
could cause insomnia,
Yeah.
stress, anxiety, heart attacks, you name it.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to display actually your email address on here,
Perfect.
Jennifer, so that people can see where they can get in touch with you. And you're at friendlyfinancecoach@gmail.com.
Yeah, I am.
Friendlyfinancecoach@gmail.com. Okay, good. So this is where people with questions could reach you at. If they want to hire your services, they can reach you at. And I know that you brought us an offer today.
Yeah.
So for our viewers, if you want to talk about that offer, and first of all, what does it entail? What does it do for them, and how could they benefit from it?
Perfect. So, as I mentioned a few times, I am very passionate about budgets. It's not a bad word.
The
So,
B word. I'm going to use that, the B word.
yeah, it's one of the chapters of the book is that the B word is not a bad word.
Yes, good.
So, for me, a lot of people have no idea when I say budgets, they raise their hands or I don't know, that seems like too much work. They don't know what it is. Or they say, oh, yeah, I write down a few things. I know what bills need to be paid.
Mhm.
So a big component of that is not just the bills that need to be paid. What are all the daily activity spending that you're doing? Right now, of course, a lot of people aren't going out, but are you still ordering online? Are you still ordering food regularly online now that a lot of, services have opened up? Are you going out for a drive every day in your car, spending money there because you need to get out of the house? So I don't ever say no to somebody about what they're spending. It's just
Mm,
helping people realize where some of that is and continuing those behaviors and those emotions around it. Will that get you where you want to be?
mhm.
So typically, a financial coach might have a cost anywhere from $200 to $600 that they offer for certain services. What I'd love to offer to everybody today is a complimentary budget counseling session. So we sit and look at your budget. It means you have
What?
to do a little bit of work, but to look at an actual budget and look at where things are and give you a little peace of mind on where to go after that. And if you're still interested in working with me, then I would love to have you.
Amazing. Okay, so you're giving away like a $500 to $700 service for free.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Absolutely.
This is very kind, very generous of you.
Well, I think
Uh,
especially right now, it is so important that when so many people have lost their jobs or they're working from home, and I know there's things the Canadian government has offered, the CERB programs and some other supportive programs, but it's a good opportunity now to, spend the time. Most people are home, spend the time actually looking at where budgets are, because even though you might have an extra little bit of income coming in, where is that going to change in the next couple months when we go back to work? So
oh, that's
having
so
some
important.
understanding is very important.
Yes. And so what do you need from people?
So, well, I need a commitment, really. I need people to email me, contact me with a phone number, and of course with your name. Ideally, if you could let me know if this was for you personally or would it be for a couple, because even though the book is geared towards women, I still, of course, adore men. So
You're
I
married
will,
to one.
yeah, I'm married to one. I have two kids that are boys. So yes, like just let me know if this will be a one person thing or a two person thing. And then I will contact you and we'll go from there. So part of that, of course, is that you need to do some work. So yes, I will review and do some conversation with you, but it will be occasionally some tough love, but you have to do a little bit of tracking, a little bit of looking at it. I'll send you the budget sheets and then you kind of break down where it is and what your regular spending is now. And if it was an issue before, we can look at what some of that issue was before that you think you were overspending.
Amazing. And you're one of those easy people to have this kind of conversation with because you're so cool and you're so easy and you're so fun. And
Thank
so
you.
I can see having those questions and asking you those questions would not be a problem at all
No,
whatsoever.
no.
Oh,
My
that's
my tough love is gentle tough love.
But so you want someone who is committed
Yeah.
to improve their financial health to take advantage of this offer,
Mhm.
which is a generous offer. Again, you're offering your service of $500 to $700 for free for anyone who will email you with their name and their phone number and is willing to put in the work.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. You mentioned something, Jennifer, and I want to go back to that. Um, the government is helping people right now with
Mm,
a little bit of subsidy.
yes.
Do you have any information on that you can share?
Yeah. So I'm not the expert in tax stuff, although I do have a very, very good, I have actually two very, very good accountants and tax agents that I work with. So I'm always have a great resource to ask questions. But the government has offered for some people based on their income. So I know with they call it the CERB program, CERB program. If people have a couple criteria, but not working, not because you quit, but because your job has been laid off, and you've made less than $1,000 in the last 4 weeks, you can apply for subsidized income of $2,000. So it runs every 4 weeks. So we're just at the end of a 4 week period, but you can still apply for the last 4 weeks. So originally, when the program came out, if you had any income, you couldn't apply, but they've changed it as of, I think it was last week, they changed it that if you have less than $1,000 income. So if you did get some sort of last pay or something, as long as it was less than $1,000 within those 2 weeks, you can actually go and apply for it. You do have to apply for it every 4 weeks. So this is the end of the last period and starting for the next period again. So you can apply again for it.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
So, having said that, it's important to remember that this is not free money, like,
No,
right?
no. Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of things people, this is a similar idea. There's lots, and that's something else I look at with people when we look at things. If you have a lot of debt, is it the time? Is it a time to renegotiate a mortgage? Is it a time to start moving some of that in there? I know a lot of people did say, well, fine, I'm just not going to pay my mortgage. But remember, if you're just decide not to pay your mortgage, it doesn't mean that you don't ever pay it. It just means it gets tacked on to a later date. So depending on what the bank structures are, it may be that when you return to work, you pay your mortgage plus a half to then pay again and again until you've paid off your relief program. Some banks may decide to move it to the end, but they risk you renegotiating and not staying with that bank.
Mhm.
So that's again a conversation. I have a couple excellent mortgage agents that I work with that we can look at that together and see if those are right strategies for you.
Great, great. Okay, great. How could people use this time right now to their benefit?
Oh, excellent question. So I think the biggest thing people, I like to say there's two groups of people. There are a group of people that are saying, this is my vacation time. I don't have to go to work. I'm going to sit back. This is just what it's going to be.
I'm
For
gonna
those,
I'm gonna watch TV.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
My
catch up.
Netflix and chill. That's what we're going
Yeah,
to do. Yeah.
yeah.
So for those people, if that's where you're feeling and you felt, maybe you were burnt out at work, maybe there were things going on. I understand that we all get there. That's a little bit okay, but you also have to realize that when you're just sitting back and you've just dislocated yourself from life, there's still bills, there's still things coming in. You do need to be aware of what's going on so that you don't fall into that pattern of then running into problems where you can't pay your bills. So for those group of people, I really want them to make sure that you're at least still recognizing that there's bills coming in and pay them so that you don't run into problems. The second group of people that are more active in thinking, okay, this is a time we're spending less, we're not doing this, we're not driving to work every day, we have more money, what are we going to do? Those are the group of people I think it would be ideal to look at what your budgets were and looking at what's going on. Spend the time having conversations. So have a conversation with your spouse or whoever else is paying bills in the house. Have a conversation with a professional and say, okay, I've got this extra money now because we're not driving the hour commute to work or we're not taking the train all the time. Where can we start allocating some of that money to either pay down your debt or start packing it away so that if this crisis continues to go on and you can no longer pay bills, you have some money set aside properly, not just in a savings account, but in an account that's growing and building for you so that you know where to structure some of that when needed.
Hmm. Hmm. And that brings me to another point. A, a lot of people are stuck at home with their
Mhm.
spouses, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And this is a little bit out of their comfort zone because now
Mhm.
they're spending a little too much time together and perhaps talking things that they're not usually talking about for this amount of time. So
Yeah.
I can see how tension can build, and I can see how those conversations can end up in conflicts,
Yeah.
and so do you have any suggestions to
Yeah.
remedy this situation?
Yeah, for sure. I know there are a lot of great resources out there for counseling and supports and stuff like that too. I'm not oblivious to those conversations. Of course, my husband and I, even though, and especially because of the fact that I do all the finances, I pay all the bills, I take care of where our investments are, I take care of our retirement plans, I take care of the kids' education plans. For him, even though he's worked in healthcare, I've now returned to healthcare to help out right now, which wasn't my priority up until a week ago.
I
Um,
appreciate you
yeah,
so
thank you.
much.
You get a call to help. How do you say no?
Mm.
Um,
Well, you could, but you're not the type
yeah,
of person to
no,
say no.
no. But of course, with him, he looked at this and said, like, he panicked a little bit and said, what does this mean? What does this mean for our accounts? What does this mean for our investments? The market took a 30% dive last month. Our investments safe? Where are things? He doesn't know because he didn't follow it. So in our situation, I'm more the money person than him, but I could see that concern and that conversation would be difficult for a lot of people. And of course, initially when he asked me, my initial reaction was that I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't know. I got to go look it up. I got to do this. And I started to feel panic because I was feeling what he was feeling. So, but I know I have all the resources and the education to go and look it up and find out and say, here's what it is. So I know for all of my clients that have their investments with me, I've reached out to them. I've made sure they're okay, either a text or a phone call, looking at where things are at. And you know what? The markets are coming back up. So for a lot of people, I've been able to move money, get things working better for them so that they feel comfortable. So I know those conversations are tough. And I hope that, if somebody is wondering, I don't have access to everybody's bank accounts. But if you want to figure out how to have a conversation with somebody, or I'm not a professional mediator, but if you need a money conversation mediator, I'm more than willing to help out and have that conversation. And of course, there are some other companies and some people out there that I do know that are offering kind of support relief, coaching relief, life coaching relief. So even if you want just help with that, send me an email saying you need some connections, and I'll definitely point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's so important to have that at our fingertips, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
it's a difficult time.
it is.
These are trying times. So, but something you said that was very valuable, and that was that it's okay to say I don't know. Sometimes when we are asked questions that we don't really know the answers to, we can get defensive and we can jump right back at the person. And instead, we could just say, "Well, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. I'm willing to ask questions. I'm willing to learn." And so we can, that's a much better way to
Yeah.
deal with things.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There is a
Amazing.
lot of fear out there right now. Of course, fear of getting sick, but of course, fear of, people losing jobs. What does this mean? What does this look like? What if we go back to work and then get sick? So, I've been trying to, put out weekly webinars and weekly supports and things like that people can reach out to me, even just ask a question. I'm not going to be the expert in what your stock market is doing, but if it's something about, hey, we have a credit card bill and we're trying to pay it down, or a mortgage we're thinking about, deferring some of the payments on that, is that a good strategy? Like, I'm willing to help people and look at some of what that is. And it may or may not be the best strategies for you, but I'll be honest with you about whether or not it is.
Mm-hmm. And so you do have a Facebook page, Friendly Finance Coach
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we've got your email down here. People can reach you. Could talking about finances and budgeting be fun?
Yeah.
Could that be a light conversation?
So my whole thing about budgets, and I love talking about budgets and finances because of the fact that I'm going to say probably the majority of the people that are on here or listening to me are women. So I get my nails done. I get my hair done. I don't do eyelash extensions, but I know people that do. So I think it is super important in your budget to make sure you're including things that are important to you. So for some people, you may tell me I am never giving up my Starbucks. So you know what? That's okay. We're going to look at ways to make that work, but you can still do that. My husband says to me every once in a while, "Oh, you went and got your nails done again?" I'm like, yes, I shopped around. I found a great place that only charged me $25, and I go every 3 weeks. So I'm okay. It's in my budget. But I budget and make sure we do things that we need to do. I'm also, I can't right now, but I'm also a huge, huge lover of restaurants. I love the environment. I love trying different foods. I love seeing the plates of things go by me and salivating at, oh, that looks good. I love going out to eat. My husband laughs all the time. He says, "That in the budget?" Because I make sure that I include that in our budget because it is something I love to do. So a big part of that is including the fun things, not just saying cut it out and you're only paying bills. make sure we're including and looking at some of the good things too.
Oh, yeah, that's important because we still need to live, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what makes it fun.
It is fun. And I have fun conversations with people because so I moved here last year from Thunder Bay, and I used to joke around with the guys that would come in. They'd say, because everybody has a big truck in Thunder Bay, so they'd have $70,000 trucks, and they'd come in, these big hefty guys. I'm not giving up my truck. Like, that's fine. I'm not asking you to. We're
Mhm,
gonna look at
mhm,
some of the other things
mhm,
that are
mhm,
going on. And we make it fun. I have fun with it. It's a little bit of work to make sure you're tracking a little bit of what you're doing. And I'm going to ask some questions, do you need that every day? Is that part of a necessity for you? And we'll look
mhm.
at some of it. It's fun. I completely understand spa days and nails and hair, or, wine. There are some things in there that we need. So yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
absolutely.
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited actually because that's something that I've had trouble with all my life, like talking about money.
Yeah.
I think it was because part of my upbringing was that, and it was a difficult conversation to have for
Mhm.
sure. I didn't have it. I avoided having those conversations, and budgeting is not really in my vocabulary much, to be honest, Jennifer. And every time I've sat down and I tried to budget, it started off real good, but
Yeah.
it's always forgotten, easily
Yes.
forgotten.
Yes.
So to make that fun for me and with clear vocabulary where I can understand, I can see how that could benefit my life for sure.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely taking advantage of your offer, and I
Okay.
hope a lot of people do. Because what else are we going to do during this time
Yeah.
than learn to have healthier lives, and part of that healthy life is a healthy financial life. And
Yeah.
if it can reduce our stress level, our anxiety level, our it can increase our hope for the future, for bring joy back into our lives, a peace of mind. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, right? And that's big. That's
Yeah.
big. Um,
We usually say what you track expands, right? So if you want to know where or I like to say holes in your boat, where there's things that are not working, then we track some of those. We make corrections in that. And if you want to know what things are going well, you track those and you start expanding on those too. So the only way to figure that out is to actually look at it and make sure that you know where things are going.
so give me an example of that, just to make it a little bit more clear
Hmm.
for me.
Sure. So again, a year ago, I think it's been almost maybe even 2 years now since she was one of the first clients that I met in Thunder Bay. She came to me, and she was 4 years away from retirement, and she said, "I have a pension," because she worked in healthcare. That's how I knew her. And she said, "I have a pension, but I'm just not sure it's enough." And she had breast cancer and had to take a second mortgage on the house, and we had to look at some of that to say, is that the best strategy for her? Should she be paying that off? Should she continue to pay that into retirement? But her biggest concern was that she would not be able to retire. And she had a lot of plans as to, I'll go walk dogs, or I'll sell my house, or I'll do this. So, for her, it was a little thing in that we started budgeting and tracking what she was doing. And we tracked, she wasn't spending a lot because she was more concerned about, retirement in 4 years. But she really had no idea if that was going to happen. And she really, in her mind, thought she needed to go and get a second job once she could no longer work at the hospital. And so, just by tracking some of that and watching it and, moving some money things around for her, she is going to far exceed what she needs for retirement so that she has a buffer. And we also put in place a couple insurance policies for her that if she was to get sick again, with breast cancer again, that at least there's some insurance and stuff for her, and she would not have to use the savings or dip into a third or an additional mortgage on what she was already paying. So
Hmm.
just simple things like that, just conversations with somebody that can look at things makes a huge, huge difference.
Yes, unbelievable. So again, for people who maybe just joined us, what is your offer again, Jennifer, that you're offering our viewers, please?
Yes. So I think, as I mentioned, for budgets, I think budgets are hugely important. because you track things and then you know. So what I'm offering is a free budget counseling session so that we can sit and look at that. There will be a little bit of homework in that you have to, be honest with yourself and look at what you're spending. Probably not as much right now that people aren't going anywhere, but we can look at what you're spending now or look at where you were spending before you were homebound and start finding out some structures for you that are going to help you get to your goals of where you want to be in the next few years.
This is a $700 service that you're giving out for free. I mean,
Yeah.
this is amazing. Okay, so you got nothing to lose and everything to gain by reaching out to Jennifer and just doing this free budgeting session with her. Can change the way you look at your financial situation and
Absolutely.
possibly gain a lot of knowledge and reduce stress, anxiety, and just change your life.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's what we do here on Dela's Voice, Jennifer. We bring people like yourselves with superpowers that impact the world in a positive way. I mean, this is such a wonderful you're doing. I mean, apart from the fact that you're out there every day saving lives, you also save people's sanity by
Yes.
helping them through their financial health, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Again, Jennifer's email address is scrolling down below this picture, friendlyfinancecoach@gmail.com. I encourage everybody to email Jennifer right now with their name and their phone numbers so that she can talk to you and help you and get you on your way. She wants you to commit yourself. That's all she said she wants. She's like, that is the only thing I want, for someone to have the commitment to change their lives, because that gives you so much pleasure. And I can see that's your passion and purpose. And I appreciate that so much.
Thank you, Dela.
Any last words, Jennifer? We've been talking now for 52 minutes. Isn't
Yeah,
that fun?
it went by fast. Yeah.
You're awesome. I mean, you're just filled with knowledge. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so what would you like to add?
Oh, just that, I know that people are struggling. So, um, reach out. Even if, like I mentioned, if it was the fact that you just don't know how to have a conversation, I can point you in some right directions. And if people are really feeling uncomfortable that they can't, like they're having some anxiety, there are some great people out there. There's a couple people that Della and I both know that have organizations that are going on for some life coaching and some support, because I know there are a lot of issues and a lot of things happening in homes that people probably never expected to happen at this point. So, even if it's not financial and you need some support or you need a life coach or a counselor at some point, please just send me a message and I will share that with you on the resources to go to.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank
When again, I want to acknowledge you, the work you do, and the work your husband does to be out there in the front lines and risking your lives for the health of the rest of us. I wish you the best. It's been such a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you for the generosity you showed in sharing your knowledge and this amazing offer of your services for people. I appreciate you. Thank you again for being here.
thank
And
you.
I hope we speak soon.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
And
Okay.
you are so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You are, and so much fun to talk to, and your sense of humor is awesome.
Thank you. I think I'm pretty funny. Some days my husband doesn't, but most of the days he thinks I'm pretty funny.
That's okay. We have different humors.
Yes,
I
yes.
can't wait for your book, Butterflies and Shiny Things, to come out. A guide. Let me see here. I wrote it down. So it's a woman's guide on how to manage financial distraction.
Yeah.
Butterflies and Shiny Things. It's going to be coming out very soon. And I would love to get my hands on a copy of that book.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Jennifer. I want to wish you a great rest of the day. Thank you again for being on the show with me and for everything you brought.
Thank you, Dela.
Thanks everybody for tuning in today. As always, this is Dela's voice, hoping to spark your soul. Have a great day. Be safe.